more scalable and a more available and more automated vCenter server, we've also been looking at different ways of deploying it. And we talked about this a little bit in Las Vegas and got quite a bit of excitement, but we'll now enable vCenter server to not only be installed directly on Windows, but on top of Linux. So we're not only letting it install on top of Linux, but we're going to be shipping it as a virtual appliance. And a virtual appliance is a pre-configured, ready-to-go virtual machine. This makes it extremely easy to deploy Virtual Center. So you'll simply download it and deploy it on your virtual infrastructure and be ready to go. And what's more, we're actually very pleased to announce that this is available today. I originally said try it now, but we don't have the bandwidth for everyone to get it. So try it later on today, but you can pick it up and give it a run right now. And as we go forward, future vCenter offerings will come out as a Linux-based appliance as well as running on Windows. Good. Okay, so I spent a lot of time talking about the lower layer here. We've really talked about the foundation of vCenter server. And this is really about enabling the vCenter suite, which is a large collection of tools. As we talked about yesterday, there are a set of tools designed to make it easy to manage your infrastructure. And then there'll also be things that are allowing you to put your SLA-driven management model in place. So we have a huge number of offerings that we're talking about here throughout the conference, Capacity IQ and Orchestrator, and one of my particular favorites is AppSpeed, which lets you start to measure and monitor performance in an application-centric metric. So all of this will be building directly on top of this firm foundation that we've talked about, and I encourage you to go to all the breakouts and see the demos. Yesterday I was actually watching the Twitter feed from here too, which is interesting. People are going to different breakout sessions and putting up things that they saw. And one person said that they hated that keynotes never talk about the things that they actually care about that affect them on a day-to-day basis. So at the last minute, I added a few things here that I thought people would want to hear about. Along the way, we're doing all sorts of disk usage reports, making better performance charts, pretty interesting new user interface based on Flex, etc. So if you could Twitter that update, that would be great. Okay, so that is a very quick tour of the vSphere offering, and there's lots more that we couldn't go into, obviously. Now I want to transform to the second part, which is around our vCloud initiative. And Paul laid this out very well yesterday. There's a lot of things that we'll be bringing out to make this a reality. So let's take a look at what we were talking about. To recap from yesterday, we see a world where there are internal clouds that are owned and run by your IT staff, as typically happens today. And there are external clouds offered by service providers. And we use a variety of techniques to try to bridge these together and to offer an overall private cloud that can consist of resources from both sides of them. Now this is pretty hard to do, but there's a lot of things in place to do it. We're offering something called the vCloud API, and it's focused on enabling three specific things. Federation, how do we connect multiple clouds together, multiple internals, which we see very common, and also as you start to use external clouds. The second is management. What is a very simple and programmatic way to take advantage of these resources wherever they happen to be? And then interoperability, which is really allowing you to more easily move between these and not get locked into one particular implementation. Concretely, what vCloud APIs are is a collection of RESTful interfaces that are currently in private release, but that we'll be putting out more broadly this year. So let's talk about a few of the things they do. They point upward for management, and they point across for federation. On the federation front, it is the most challenging, and it appears a little science fiction-y when you get started, but also it seemed a little science fiction-y when we first did vMotion, connecting multiple servers together. In a similar way, we believe we can connect multiple data centers together, although with a different set of challenges that are in place there. We use our vMotion technologies and VMFS internally. We'll use a different set of tools to do it in this world. And there's all sorts of opportunities to connect them. It's about making sure that you're secure as you leverage different resources. What's very challenging on the networking side is how are you going to route traffic when you're bringing up things in different places? And how do you maintain a network quality of service? The storage front's very interesting as well. How do you actually allow an application to get to its data wherever the compute or wherever the storage actually is? And also, how do you move around things that can be sort of big as you're moving around virtual machines? And then most importantly, how do you monitor this? And how do you make sure that your SLAs are being met and that you don't have rogue applications moving all over the world? So these four areas are where we're focused on the federation front. And the reason we have a lot of opportunity here is that we've already done our first example of federating multiple clouds, multiple data centers, in Site Recovery Manager. And we connect in two ways in this case. First of all, we have your data center running, and we connect at the storage front. We leverage array-based replication through plugins from our storage partners, and they copy all of your protected virtual machines from your internal cloud to another internal cloud or possibly an external cloud from vendors such as SunGuard. In this case, we're connecting at the storage side by replicating, and at the virtual center level, we are comparing and sharing policies. So part of Site Recovery Manager is that you are putting your runbook into code, and it says, what order should I bring up virtual machines in? How should I deal with their networks when they come up? So we have a good example today of how we're connecting multiple sites and having virtual center orchestrate between them. So the first question we always get asked when we talk about federating clouds is a pretty interesting one, which is around, can I move things live between data centers? And this is what people refer to as long-distance vMotion, and we are making a sizable investment in really figuring this out. It's a very hard problem. Some customers are actually doing this today, where they are taking a virtual machine and have it move from one of their data centers to another data center live. But it takes a fairly skilled workforce and some fairly exotic setups to do this. So what we'd really like to do is make this more mainstream for those users who want to do it. Honestly, I think it'll be used more between internal data centers in the relative near term. But there are a few things we have to solve, and this is absolutely an ecosystem challenge that we're working on. And basically, virtual machine vMotion works by having a virtual machine running on one side, and then picking the right time to start transferring its state to the other side. And at the right time, you kind of hop over there, and you continue execution. And the goal is obviously to have minimal disruption whatsoever, so that all of your connections from a network standpoint are maintained. And there's really three things that have to be done here. You have to move the memory of the virtual machine as it's changing, make sure it's kept up to date. You have to do seamless cutover of your storage, where you obviously need to keep it in check so that you never lose any of your data. And then on the network side, one of the bigger challenges is how do you maintain an IP address, or at least an identity? And so there's a lot of great work going on with partners. Certainly deduplication techniques are important here, and WAN acceleration. On the storage side, all sorts of replication and different ways of mirroring sites are important. And on the network side, we're looking at a variety of things with our partners where you can extend layer 2 across sites or use things such as NAT-like approaches. So this is not a solved problem for the general case, but it is in use by a few customers. And the reason it's so exciting isn't necessarily this global load balancing. We kind of looked at the feedback that we've gotten, and you could think about it as things that are going on in the short distance and things that are going on across oceans, essentially. On a shorter distance, again, the most exotic thing to think about is DRS that starts to automatically move things live between sites. I do think that'll be a little ways out, but what is most important to the customers we've talked about is planned downtime for an entire data center, or actually a full data center move. And it'd be great in this case if you know that a hurricane is coming, you could proactively move your entire data center live to one of your other data centers. So I think we'll be following this one most heavily at the start. Last year we had some speakers talk about follow the sun technologies too. Especially in the desktop world, it'd sure be nice if you're connecting from all over the world that your desktop moves even closer to you as you get the chance and have better latencies as you're dealing with it. So that was a quick touch at the types of things in federation that we're doing with partners. The other piece is the manageability front. And again, this is about simple programmatic access to these different types of resources. There's two types of management I want to talk about. The first, you saw some great examples of yesterday from Terramark and EngineYard. A lot of the cloud vendors have built nice portals for you to log into that let you create virtual machines and spawn them off and start running them, and of course monitor them. What we'll be doing is offering a completely customizable self-service portal to allow others to pick this up and run with the idea very quickly. It's very customizable for the external cloud providers, certainly from a branding front. But every provider has different forms of user authentication, different forms of billing, so it needs to be very flexible in how it plugs into those. We are basing this portal technology on Lab Manager, which has provided self-service test and development labs to customers so far. So it's a very strong foundation to build upon and very tried and tested. So this is a way we'll offer to our external cloud partners who want to just customize a portal and use it for running their clouds. The other thing I want to talk about is you as an administrator sitting within your own IT department. How can you actually look at virtual machines that are running different places? And for that, I'd like to bring out Bruce one more time to talk about something we call the vCenter vCloud plugin.